What is the worst permanent life decision that you've ever made? Bought a penis ring to have sex with my ex-GF. The first, and only, time I used it, I set the ring size way too small, basically choked my penis from lack of circulating blood, completed sex, but the next morning my penis was shriveled, like half its normal flaccid size, and looked like it was covered in really tiny veins everywhere. Went to the ER and it turns out that I caused ischemia in parts of my penis, burst a few blood vessels, and basically destroyed my ability to get an erection for the rest of my life. I am only in my 20s. Not mine, but my mom's. Trusting a sketchy dentist because he was in the neighborhood and took Medicaid. For every filling he gave us, he drilled out entirely too much healthy tooth, and gave us each one root canal, in each of our mouths. The tooth that had root canal treatment completely broke off to the gum and all the teeth that he filled ended up breaking. He has since been put out of business and been charged with malpractice. I decided to try and be a parkour expert. My crappy coordination didn't kill my motivation. Until one evening, I was at a local park and decided to do a massive wall jump that failed epically. I fell on top of a jabbed surface and tore my intestines. Due to this injury, I now have a permanent colostomy at the ripe age of 16. Mistakes, man, they suck. Tattoo with my wife's name. She got mine, too. Married 6 years at the time, blissfully in love. Lasted another 8. Now I just wanna chop my arm off. Chop hers off, too. Swap arms. Problem solved. I have a large birthmark on one side of my face, and when I was around 8 years old, when my father was still alive and we had a decent income, my mother informed me of a simple procedure and asked if I wanted to have the birthmark removed. I said no because it gave me character. As it turns out, that character is a socially awkward hermit who, and I've had a couple women tell me this, looks like a rapist. Going to med school because it was the next logical step. I didn't take it seriously, and now I'm $300 plus K in debt, waiting tables, horribly overeducated and underskilled, licensed for everything, living with my parents and trying to figure out what's next. I tried to climb the highest mountain in my country. My father took me and my brother there with some friends. The problem is that I have sickle cell anemia, and due to the low oxygen I just couldn't go further, but I did anyway. Bad idea. My spleen and appendix almost burst, and I had to wait for 24 hours in agonizing pain before a helicopter rescued my butt. Had to get my spleen and appendix removed, and now I can't do any hard exercise, ever. Look on the bright side, at least you're immune to malaria. I grew up poor, as in family had no car or indoor plumbing for many years and lived mostly off potatoes and eggs we raised in the backyard. As a teen I had 1 pair of shoes and 2 pairs of blue jeans to last an entire school year, which were pretty worn out and patched after a few months. I envied my friends who were better off, and became a workaholic that held down 3 jobs at a time for most of my 20s and 30s. I bought my first apartment building at age 24, while I myself was living in a ratty 1972 mobile home on rented ground in a sheep farm pasture. I went to college part-time for years as time permitted, paying cash. I'm not wealthy, but have done okay for myself, have a nice house and enough to live comfortably, and finally got married at age 50. If I had it to do over again, I would have worked less and partied more when I was younger, and made more time for a social life. I regret never taking enough time to search for and find the right one when I was young enough to have kids and a family, instead settling for comfortable relationships with the few women over the years who showed any interest in me, and raising their kids instead. I would have spent more time traveling the world, getting a better education, explored art more, gone to concerts, drank more beer, owned more animals, sat around more bonfires, learned to play an instrument, learned to fly, owned more race cars, volunteered at more charities, gone to more beaches, planted more gardens, and formed more deep friendships with a large, diverse and eclectic group of people. These things are more important than having money in the bank or a nice house. My dad called me and told me he was dying. He was in hospital with cancer. I asked the nurse if he was and she said no. Anyway, I tried to get to see him but my brother had my car and I couldn't get anyone to take me and he died late that night. Alone. If I knew, obviously I would have bust, walked, hitchhiked or crawled to that hospital, but I didn't, and 14 years later I still can't forgive myself and it haunts me every day. After reading the question, I guess this doesn't really belong here, but oh well, I typed it and it's staying. I decided to break up a fight. It was a success at first, but then some guy came from behind and tackled me. I was stronger than him and gave a few good ones, but he was obviously a trained fighter. He put my leg in some type of jiu-jitsu hold and tore my ACL. I was an uninsured student at the time. 10 years later, I still cannot play any sports and I have to be extremely cautious in the snow. Edit. Holy crap, thanks for all of the love and gold. Made my day. Here's a couple of answers to common questions people are asking. The fight I tried to break up turned into a brawl between two groups of people. The school ended up getting involved and kicked 3 people out, including the guy who ruined my knee. Suing crossed my mind, but I wasn't supposed to be at the bar and I was on a full ride scholarship. I was more worried about my scholarship being taken away. Plus, I was 19. WTF did I know? This happened in 2001. It doesn't hurt anymore except for during the winter months when it throbs from time to time. Heck, sometimes I forget which knee is injured. I have to be extremely careful when walking on an icy sidewalk. If I slipped and had to regain my balance, my knee would fail me. I plan on upgrading my insurance coverage one of these to get it fixed. Thanks again for the gold. Happened to my buddy too. Tried to stop a fight. Guy who he pulled off put him in an arm lock and dislocated his elbow. It took him 6 months to recover, but thankfully he has all his mobility back. Smoking. I have done irreversible damage to my body for no reason other than to get a nicotine fix for a problem I created for myself. God, I was stupid. I quit 2 years ago and I still think I want to smoke on a weekly basis, but I know better. Keep it up, you can do it. Volunteering to go to war. I didn't even have to go. Could have finished my contract out and never have went. I feel like it cost me my sanity and happiness most of the time. Definitely took more out of me than I ever expected it to. Dang. Hope you're out of that war zone for good, man. Both psychically and mentally. It was a very gradual shift over the course of a year from if I eat a little less and exercise more to if I eat absolutely nothing and exercise for 4-5 hours a day. That did it to me. The entire time I felt like I was making a conscious, independent choice as I slipped further and further into a mental illness that kills 20% of its sufferers. Now I have a serious heart problem, osteopenia, and people still do not think I am sick. Just in control. I would have less health problems if I were overweight. My doctors had to let me go once I was a healthy weight, but that didn't help my mental health at all. Every day I struggle with putting the food I need to live into my body. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. Lying through my teeth. I'm okay. To my high school counselor when she asked me how I was doing. 4 years of severe depression and many failed college classes later. So many doors in life are closed to me forever. If you're a young adult reading this, please get the help you need if you need it, today. I turned down my dream job because of location. Then, I ended up getting another job elsewhere that was the right location and a high salary, and those were the worst 5 years of my life. Breaking up with that awesome girl in college because I wasn't ready to settle down. Been trying to find a girl that awesome ever since, or remotely close. You shouldn't compare everyone to her. I do the same thing, but you'll always have a bar set for a bunch of trays no one else will have. And you could very much meet someone else who will suit your needs if you just let it go and find someone awesome. Not just as awesome but awesome as well. I messed up my first semester of college pretty badly. I wasn't used to the freedom of having the option to show up to class. I ended up getting kicked out, and I think the reason that this is the worst permanent life decision I've made is because I know how much I disappointed some of my family members, especially my dad. I'm going to a community college now, and I told my dad my grades and GPA and he did say he was proud of me, which was good. I got married and we got matching tattoos instead of wedding rings because tattoos are permanent like marriage, right? My husband is leaving me. Thank you awesome stranger for the gold. I date a girl with a tattoo of her ex's initials on her posterior. It's fine. I love her anyways. You can still get a man. Maybe not 100% permanent, but I'm a recent college grad with a degree in film, and while film is my passion, I hate myself every day for being stupid enough to major in film. UHH. Saying no when I was offered treatment for my mental illnesses. Now I'm barely functional and have no health insurance. You can apply for federally funded disability money so you can afford meds treatment. Note, I realize this can come across flippant. I apologize and I mean this comment sincerely. If you have mental problems and can't solve them yourself, seek out any and everything possible. Move to France. Not a permanent decision, but within a year, I knew I would never like it. It's been 6 years of pure heck. Hate the country, hate the culture, just depressed chronically until my BF and I made the decision to move back to Canada last year. We're leaving tomorrow morning at 8 AM on a direct flight to Montreal. Yeah, home. After reading some of these, I don't feel like such a piece of crap for making the decisions I've made thus far. Not saying any of you are pieces of crap for the decisions you've made, but it relieves me to know that I'm not alone in my bad decision making. Now, when I walk through the neighborhoods at night to relieve some stress, all the fancy houses I pass by won't be so daunting anymore, because now I know there are people in those seemingly good lives who have made some wrong turns, or are unhappy where they're at. Thanks, guys. 2-minute account. Doing drugs, marrying my ex-wife, moving to Vegas, drinking again. Jesus Christ, what a train wreck my life has been. Not breaking up with my ex-wife while we were in college. One night we were doing laundry and we were right on the verge of breaking up. We almost broke up, but I backed down. We ended up getting married and had a couple of kids. My life is very fricked up because of her now 15 years down the road, but I have 2 wonderful kids from the relationship. That would not exist if we had broken up that one night. Funny how so much of my life seems to pivot around that one night and that one decision. Without making the decision I made, I would not have my kids, but my life would not be fricked. I think about that night a lot. Buying that World of Warcraft subscription and game in 2004. When I was 14, I was getting ready in my room for school, and from my window upstairs I could see my dad putting stuff into his truck to leave for work. I thought about opening the window and telling him have a good day, I love you, and then thought nah, that window is hard to open and I'll see him tonight. I did see him that night. In a hospital bed. He was a contractor working on a 2-story roof and fell onto a brick patio. He was in a coma for 23 days and then we had to let him go. He knew I loved him and all that, but I still had one last chance to tell him and I didn't take it for laziness. Took my doctor's recommendation to take a drug without questioning it. Ended up taking Paxil to help with my anxiety at the time and it didn't chemically work for me. Ended up going crazy for a week, ending with me jumping off a parking garage from about 70 feet onto the street below. Now I have a wrist plate, replacement elbow joint, metal rods in both legs and a half cage in my spine that was put in wrong initially, causing me to lose function of my legs. Now I have little function of my lower legs, but managed to get myself walking again with the use of a cane. Unfortunately this happened just before I was 18 and haven't had a job since I can't drive and live with my family in a manual labor driven town. I can feel my independence slipping away with each day, and it came down to trusting my doctor and the medication. Granted this was before Paxil got a black box warning. Getting married twice. The first one I was young and dumb. The second one she was young, I was still dumb. There will be no third marriage in my future. I'm tired of losing 3/4 of my stuff. Judge, they can keep all their stuff and you give them half of your stuff. Oh, and you get to pay all the bills. Me. I don't need a condom. I'll just pull out. 19 years old me. Despite MTV's efforts to glamorize teenage parents, it really sucks. It's hard trying to raise someone when you yourself don't even have direction in your life. You're already poor, kids are expensive, and you alienate yourself from your friends because number 19 21-year-old really wants to hang out with you and your kid on a Friday night. You drop out of school because you can't handle working 40 hours a week, being a parent, and trying to be a full-time student. or even a part-time student. All this being said, I love my son to death and he is probably the best thing that happened to me. Without him I truly believe I would have drank or partied myself into a really bad place. Took me a lot longer to get back on my feet, but 12 plus years later I'm finally back in school and really happy with my life. Going to University of Toronto for 2 years. I wasted 2 years of my life, $16,000, and now I don't even want to put it on my resume because I'd have to explain to the interviewer why I didn't finish. Damn it, I knew the first semester I was there that I wasn't smart enough to graduate. I studied 5-8 hours per day and got the same grades as someone who studied 5-8 hours a month. Same boat here. I am going into my 4th year and I can't pass Calc 2 for the life of me. No one knows. I took a job fresh out of high school at a major plant, one of the largest in the world. It was great. 8 years ago I started at $60K a year. I figured with all the loans I could skip and education time I would net more in my lifetime earlier and could retire very easily early. Ended up getting taken advantage of by the company. Had a class action lawsuit for unsafe work practices. That doesn't even pay for food now, and have constant issues with my internal organs and bacterial infections. Almost no money to pay for medical bills or any education for a job to do to make a living other than manual labor, which compounds the health issue. Getting a spider tattooed on my breast. I'm going to be a mom soon and I feel a little trashy having a tit tat. Edit. I was 16 and co-op at a tattoo parlor and thought it'd look sexy, and it actually is well done. As for scaring my kid with, that's just preposterous. If anything, they'll probably become more comfortable with arachnids. Break me off a piece of the tit-tat bar. Failed college for the first time in late 2010, then becoming a complete agoraphobe. I didn't leave the house for months at a time for the good part of a year. Usually slept all day and was up all night. Began college for the second time in 2011 and failed again. I'm finishing my first full year of college this year. I'm not afraid to go out anymore and I've met someone who makes me feel safe and loved. Life can change so fast, but I still regret them wasted months and I hope it doesn't affect my future job prospects. Going to a university 500 miles away rather than a local one. Though it felt like a 3-year vacation, it was a massive money drain and little to show for it. Blew the $600K my grandpa left me when I was 18 on drugs, gambling, a BMW and the club lifestyle. Aggressive investing in the stock market right before the crash didn't help either. I was broke by 22 and now I'm 26 and hate my younger self. At least I helped my other grandpa and my mom out with the money while I still had it, but I could have done so much more good if I wasn't such an idiot. Taught my 21 years old best friend roommate to drive, then pushed him to get a moped while he saves up for a car. The moped first idea was his own. I was his sole transportation for 2 years, and it was starting to wear me down, making 4 trips to our work and such every day. Found him a moped, got it fixed, let him drive it. Freedom at last. Right, wrong, had moped 2 days, ran a red light, hit by an SUV. He went brain dead a few days later and they pulled him off life support. This past few has been the hardest week and a half of my life. I'm sorry, Mike. I started playing video games instead of doing something. Arts, crafts, music, anything. I can help my family and friends with almost anything computer related and it's great to be of help. But it doesn't feel truly rewarding. I wish I could create something, but I'm working on it. One day, maybe, if I work hard enough, if I can ignore the feeling of being terrible of something before getting better, if I can truly dedicate my heart and soul. It'll be hard. I've never done it before, but I have to try. Even if nobody will read this, I am still going to share with you all the thing that I regret the most, and it's nothing groundbreaking, but I cannot stop thinking about how much I would like to go back in time to change it. I am now 39 years old and born in Germany. Both of my biological parents were hardcore H addicts. I was rescued at the age of 3 by a social worker who knew my parents well and one day asked them where I was. They couldn't remember. I was alone in the apartment for at least a week. Apparently, since I don't remember a thing, surviving by eating crackers, drinking water from you know where. Fast forward 13 years. I was adopted when I was 3 by a very loving couple. They were the best parents you could imagine, and surprise surprise, I was a difficult kid. I was so difficult to handle that a few families that gave me shelter before I was picked up by my now parents couldn't simply handle me. I was unable to sleep in a normal bed but had to sleep on the floor. Had massive problems with temper and other nasty things. My now parents thought that I would never grow up becoming a normal person if they give me away again and kept me despite of all the problems. By the age of 10 or 11 they had have a psychologist evaluate me. At that time I started to become really freaking difficult. The psychologist told my parents that kids build up their trust at a very early age, as early as a few months after they are born. Since I never learned to trust people, I would also be at risk to react odd to people around me. With 16 things got so bad they had to kick me out. They got me a place and I don't know what to call it. It was a place for young adults who do an apprenticeship. My biggest regret to this day that I caused my parents so much grief. The older I get, the more I want to go back in time and change it. I want to go back in time and feel like a boy again. I missed out on my childhood and I long to be back and change it for the better so my parents are proud of me. The older I get, the more angry I get with my biological parents. They fricked me up so good. The person I am now is okay. But there is so much sorry for the long rant, Reddit. 2. Both involving drinking and peer pressure. All my fault though, not trying to say it was someone else's fault. First one was when me and my friend decided to play a Family Guy drinking game during a blizzard. Only problem was, all we had to drink was whiskey. So after that we decided it would be a good idea to brand me. At first it was going to be the Batman symbol made out of paper clips. Then my buddy came out with a star keychain. The first brand was on my left side below my ribs, and it sparked when it hit the skin, so it wasn't that good of a scar. So being drunk I told him to really press it. Second one on the other side took the skin right off. No brand, just skin removal. I laugh about it now. The worst, and the reason I rarely ever drink anymore. DUI. Hands down. The worst life decision I ever made, and I was always against drinking and driving. I hung out with a lot of bad people and we all made bad decisions. Finally now my life is back on track. New job, new location, new friends, and a new life. When I was around 5 or 6 I was learning to ride a bike. I had training wheels and was learning to ride without them with the assistance of my dad. One Sunday dad was working and I wanted to ride. He told me he was busy, so what did I do? Got my bike out and started riding anyway, without a helmet. I fell off in my driveway and hit my head so hard I got a concussion and now I have debilitating migraines. All because I was too stubborn to wait for my dad. We should have bought a condo instead of a whole townhouse. We would have about the same amount of effective living space and could have saved a ton more money. Took a hallucinogenic drug at my friend's house, even though I knew his scale was somewhat off. Turns out I got about 6 times higher a dose than intended. The part I regret was not seeking help afterwards. I had visual hallucinations for a week and auditory hallucinations for over a month, and panic attacks far longer than that. I am almost restored now, but the imagery still haunts me. Long one. So bear with me. When I was 17 I was in love with an 18-year-old girl. We both thoroughly loved to drink. Like a lot. A whole lot. Anyway, I used to write her love poems all the time. She had a boyfriend but she told me she planned on ending it soon. Well, she finally broke up with her boyfriend and she came to my house that night and we made frick. We never officially dated. Honestly, I didn't see the point. We were best friends who were in love. Easy enough. For a few months this continued. She would come over and we would get drunk with my dad. He let me drink on the weekends, and then we would frick and watch Pulp Fiction. One day, she, my father, and I went to watch a play a few towns over. After the play we decided to stay across the street in a historic resort type hotel. They had the biggest hot tub ever. It was like a fricking pool. Well, around 2 AM we brought a case of beer and sat in the hot tub drinking for hours. Eventually, I got rather toasty. I went inside to the pool area, jumped in for a bit to cool down. When I went back out to the hot tub, she and my father were fricking right there, in front of me. They didn't stop when they saw me. They told me to leave. I got the room key, Went upstairs to the room and cried a lot. Then I got angry. Very angry. Dad had left his phone in the room. I called my stepmother and told her everything. Then I called the girl's mother and grandmother. Needless to say, I felt somewhat satisfied by my petty revenge. Fast forward 1 month. My dad shot himself because my stepmother left him. So yeah, I guess that's my biggest regret. I'd probably have to say going to college and post-grad schooling. Took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do, so I was in college for 5 years. After that I spent a year in a private school continuing my education. All this schooling, all this money, all this time, and I'd be exactly in the same spot if I just went and got my 2-year associates at a tech school. I believe it's more in who you know rather than what you know. Maybe 20 years ago a college degree meant something, but in my industry, no one even looks at my schooling, just my skill. Mine is inaction. I should have played an extra sport in high school, and I should have created a local non-profit organization for kids with Tourette TTE syndrome, which I have and therefore relate to. If I had done both of those, I know I could have gotten a full ride to my dream college, which would have then allowed for my 2 brothers and sister to for sure go to college without my parents going so far into debt. Then my parents wouldn't have been so stressed, which would have made home life easier, and my siblings would have a much easier time in their lives. My inaction took a huge toll on my family. I still regret it to this day, and I wish I would have taken the opportunity to not be lazy, to play the extra sport, go the extra mile, not just sit home, relax, and expect it to all come to me without lifting a finger. Inaction is just as permanent as action. Those things are much easier said than done. Even if you had tried your hardest, there would be no guarantee that your non-profit would have been successful. Don't be so hard on yourself. Every single freaking decision between age 17 and 25, each one a compounded clusterfuck of bad judgment. Only by blind luck did I not end up dead or in prison. I'm in my 50s now, yes, an elder redditor, and those decisions still haunt me. Be careful out there, kids. Dang careful. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.